On a sweltering July afternoon in a small village within Kundrathur town, Tamil Nadu, India, two children, a boy and a girl, are found unconscious in bed, milk still lingering at the corners of their mouths. The villagers are stunned. Everyone assumes it's a tragic accident, but no one suspects that behind this scene lies a horrifying crime. The perpetrator is no stranger, no intruder, but the biological mother of the two children. What motive could drive a mother to harm her own children? What could make maternal love be crushed beneath greed and lust? This is no ordinary family tragedy. This is a calculated homicide, planned, meticulously prepared, executed with chilling ruthlessness, all to sustain an illicit affair. Today we trace every clue to uncover what truly transpired within that home, and why the court sentenced this mother to life imprisonment without parole. Kundrathur is a quiet suburban area near Chennai, Tamil Nadu. No towering skyscrapers, no bustling crowds, just dirt roads, corrugated tin roofs, and street vendors calling out in the early mornings. Abhirami, 28, lived in a small one-story house in this impoverished neighborhood. She was married to Ramesh, a factory worker manufacturing car components. Each morning, he left home before dawn, riding his motorcycle over 10 kilometers to work. Abhirami stayed home to care for the children, manage the household, and occasionally do sewing work for local tailors. They had two children, AJ, aged 7, a first grader at a nearby school, bright, quiet, with a passion for drawing. Karnika, aged 5, lively, cheerful, always clinging to her mother at the market. From the outside, the family appeared poor but content. Neighbors often saw Ramesh walking Ajay to school each morning, and Abhirami carrying Karnika to the gate to see him off, sometimes waving happily. No one suspected that behind those walls lay a fractured life. A mother drowned in desire, a husband oblivious to his wife's fading loyalty, and two innocent children unwittingly caught in a murder plot devised by their own mother. Abhirami no longer found happiness in the marriage. She felt her life was dull, impoverished, and meaningless. Everything changed when she met Meenakshi Sundaram. He wasn't particularly wealthy, but he had a new motorbike, stylish attire, and a sweet tongue. They met by chance at the tailor's where she often collected work. Casual greetings gave way to lengthier conversations, compliments, and suggestive glances. One day, Abhirami no longer returned home right after picking up her work. She stayed alongside Meenakshi in dingy lodgings filled with empty promises. From that moment, her life veered off its previous path. She began lying to her husband, absenting herself more often, and a dark thought took root. If the children were gone, she would be free. No more responsibilities, no more being called mother, no more forced cooking. Only her and Meenakshi, starting a new life together. Before the tragedy, life in Abhirami's home followed a routine. Ramesh rose at 4 a.m., swallowed a cold breakfast, and left for work. Ajay and Karnika awoke later, brushed their teeth, washed up, and prepared for school. Abhirami cooked, fed them, and walked AJ to the school bus stop. Left alone with her little daughter, Abhirami would spend hours on phone calls with Meenakshi, talking about unnamed dreams, a life of freedom, sneaking away together. She knew Meenakshi had a wife and child, but he promised he would leave them if she had the courage. She believed, or at least wanted to believe. Their rendezvous became bolder, daytime meetings while the children were home alone. Sometimes Karnika cried from hunger because the mother wasn't home. Ajay made instant noodles for her. Nobody knew, except neighbors who occasionally overheard arguments between Ramesh and Abhirami, yelling from inside the house, but then everything went silent. That silence was the calm before a storm. In June 2018, Abhirami began planning. She bought sleeping pills from a pharmacy 2 kilometers away under a false name. She tested the dosage on a stray dog. Once assured of the effect, she proceeded. Meenakshi didn't object. He even suggested timing. Wait until Ramesh worked a night shift and choose a rainy day to avoid attention. That day came sooner than expected. A first rain of the season drenched Kundrathur in early July. Ramesh was suddenly sent to work a night shift. At 8 p.m., Abhirami called Meenakshi. Tonight. It ends tonight. Night of July 7th, 2018. A light rain falls. Kundrathur is filled with the sound of dripping water and dim lamplight glinting off tin roofs. Around 6 p.m., Ramesh leaves home on his motorcycle, called for an unscheduled night shift at the factory in Tambaram. Before leaving, he tousles the children's heads and reminds Ajay to look after his sister. Abhirami shuts the door behind him, expression calm. Ajay and Karnika finish dinner, rice with lentil curry, and watch cartoons on a battered old phone that Ramesh left behind. Abhirami enters the kitchen holding a packet of milk and 2 white pills. She crushes the pills, mixes them into the milk, stirs with sugar and pours into 2 plastic cups. Smiling, she tells the children, "Today, Mother is rewarding you for being good." Ajay drinks first. Karnika hesitates, but follows when she sees her brother drink. Minutes later, both grow drowsy. Ajay slumps in his chair, eyelids heavy. Karnika curls on the pillow, barely able to speak. Abhirami locks the bedroom door, calls Meenakshi. He answers immediately, voice calm as if routine. "They're asleep. Ready. Do it. Let me know when done." She hangs up, pauses a moment to look at them, then retrieves 2 pillows from the kitchen. She returns to the living room, places a pillow over each child's face, pressing down, without trembling, without tears. Outside, rain taps steadily. Ajay struggles faintly under the pillow, but the sedative has taken hold. Abhirami increases her pressure, staring blankly at her son. No whispers, no tears, just the rustle of pillow fabric and her quick breaths. After about 2 minutes, he's still. She lets go, looks once more at his face, then turns to Karnika, smaller, weaker, barely conscious. She repeats the act. Pillow, pressure. A faint twitch, then motionless. It is about 8:45 p.m. Inside that small home, the 2 children lie dead at their mother's hands. No screams, no pleas, only absolute silence. Abhirami wipes her hands calmly, calls Meenakshi. "It's done." "Good," he replies. "Get rid of the stuff. I'll pick you up tomorrow." She cleans up, washes the pillows, wipes the floor, arranges the children's clothes, lays the bodies neatly on the bed. She cracks open a window and turns on the fan to give an impression that they just slept deeply. Ramesh returns home after his shift. He enters the house using his own key. Stepping into the room, he sees the 2 children lying motionless on the bed. He calls out. No answer. He moves closer. He touches the boy. He's ice cold. He calls out loudly. This time, Abhirami jolts awake from the next room. Pretending to be horrified, she screams and cries. Ramesh grabs the 2 children, shaking them vigorously. Still no reaction. He yells in the dead of night. The whole neighborhood awakens. The first person to run over is the grocer living nearby, followed by other neighbors, then the police. Abhirami screams as if she's gone insane. But there are no tears. Early on the morning of July 8, 2018, in a poor residential area of the town of Kundrathur, screams erupted in the night, jolting the small alley awake. Ramesh sat on the floor, clutching the lifeless bodies of his kids, his eyes dazed, unable to believe what he saw. Ajay and Karnika lay motionless on the bed, eyes squeezed shut, skin pale blue. No obvious wounds, no blood, no signs of struggle. It was as if they'd drifted into a deep sleep from which they'd never awaken. Abhirami collapsed to her knees beside them, screaming, pounding her chest as if in unbearable pain. She cried loudly, but no one saw tears. The first to enter the home was the grocer who lived next door, followed by a vegetable vendor from the start of the alley. Then several young men from the neighborhood. They stood outside the door, stunned by the scene inside the small room. Some tried to wake the children. Others called for an ambulance, and one person alerted the police. Local police arrived at the scene around 6 o'clock in the morning. They sealed off the house, asked everyone to step outside, and transported the children's bodies to the main hospital for autopsies. Ramesh accompanied the ambulance in a state of complete panic. Abhirami sat motionless in front of the house, clutching her shawl, her eyes void. At the hospital, doctors quickly confirmed the children had died hours earlier, between 8 and 9 o'clock the previous evening. There were no signs of illness, no obvious injuries from accidents, but both showed signs of asphyxiation, and the stomach contents had an odd odor. Preliminary autopsy results indicated mild poisoning, with injuries around the nose and mouth, consistent with smothering with a pillow. Bruising around the lips and eyes further supported this theory. Police immediately opened a criminal investigation, ruling out natural causes. When questioned, Ramesh said he had gone to work the night shift, leaving home at 6 in the evening. At that time, both children were healthy. He insisted that his wife had been at home and no strangers had entered. Neighbors also confirmed that nothing unusual had occurred and the night was quiet. When police returned to the house to examine the scene, they noticed the living room was unusually tidy. Furniture was arranged neatly. The pillows on the bed appeared freshly washed. A milk glass still sat in the sink. In the trash, they found torn packaging of white pill medication. Investigators began to suspect, and the first person they focused on was none other than the biological mother, Abhirami. The investigative team returned to the house just hours after the bodies had been taken to the hospital. They brought evidence collection tools and began analyzing every detail. Morning light filtering through the door cracks made the atmosphere feel eerie, as if the house had lost all life. The bedsheet where the children had lain was taken for forensic analysis. The pillows were also seized to check for fiber traces, fingerprints, or any residual hair or skin. In the living room, police found 2 plastic glasses with dried milk. A slightly bent spoon in the sink suggested forceful handling, particularly noteworthy. They found torn packaging from a type of sleeping pill. Though damaged, the blurred labeling still revealed the drug's identity. Scene experts concluded there were no signs of forced entry. The lock was intact, doors unbroken, and neighbors reported no strange noises. This reinforced the suspicion that the perpetrator lived in the house. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the autopsy proceeded urgently. Both bodies were refrigerated upon arrival. Forensic doctors conducted the examination to determine cause of death. Stomach contents revealed significant amounts of milk mixed with sedative chemicals. The dosage wasn't lethal but sufficient to induce unconsciousness. More notably, there were mild bruises around the nose and mouth, swelling in the throat, and damage to the larynx, indicative of mechanical suffocation. Based on the pillow's characteristics at the scene, the forensic pathologist concluded the children were smothered with a pillow while unconscious due to poisoning. Time of death was pinpointed between approximately 8:45 p.m. and 9:15 p.m. on July 7th, matching Ramesh's statement about leaving home. The preliminary report, labeled clearly at the end, cited a premeditated murder. Police summoned Abhirami for formal questioning. That afternoon, Abhirami was taken to the police station while Ramesh was at the hospital, completing procedures to retrieve the children's bodies. She wore a light gray sari, her head covered, her face ashen, but unusually calm. Police didn't interrogate her immediately. They let her sit quietly in the interrogation room before beginning with simple questions. Abhirami claimed she gave the children milk as usual that night, and then the 3 of them went to sleep. She noticed nothing abnormal until her husband returned the next morning. When asked about sleeping pills, she appeared surprised, insisted there were none in the house. She denied any strange visitors and claimed she didn't know what happened, but police were not easily swayed. Based on scene evidence, mobile phone data, and neighbor testimonies, they reconstructed the events. They first examined Abhirami's phone. In the call and message logs, the name Meenakshi Sundaram appeared repeatedly, nearly 30 calls in the 3 days before the incident. Notably, on the night of the crime, Abhirami called him twice, once before and once after the estimated time of the children's death. Police tracked Meenakshi's phone location. While he was not at the crime scene, recovered messages revealed suspicious content, including, "Let me know when it's done. From tomorrow, no one will bother us." When summoned, Meenakshi was initially evasive. He claimed they were just friends and had never met privately. But when police presented message copies, security camera images near the tailor shop where they had met, and evidence from the pharmacy where Abirami bought the pills, his testimony began to shift. Both were detained pending investigation. Meanwhile, police gathered statements from pharmacists, residents, and acquaintances. A neighbor said they heard Abirami say, "I'm tired of being a mother. I want to live for myself." Those seemingly casual words became a crucial piece of the case. After nearly 2 weeks of investigation, evidence was overwhelmingly clear. The charge sheet was completed. Police asserted this was a carefully planned, intentional murder. The perpetrators were the biological mother and her lover. On July 20th, 2018, less than 2 weeks after Ajay and Karnika's deaths, police issued arrest warrants for Abirami and Meenakshi Sundaram under Section 302 of the Indian Penal Code. Local media coverage sparked public outrage. Images of the young mother stepping out of the police car, handcuffed and expressionless, became a chilling emblem of the crime no one expected. Abirami was arrested at her parental home, where she had stayed after her children's cremation. She offered no resistance. She asked only one question: "Is he arrested too?" Then silently accompanied the officers. Meenakshi was arrested 3 hours later at a tea stall near the bus station. He had been preparing to leave town with a small suitcase and a few clothes. At the station, the two were interrogated separately. After hours of silence, Abirami confessed. She admitted to lacing the milk with sleeping pills and smothering her children with a pillow, even insisting that Meenakshi did not directly participate and that the decision was hers alone. She claimed she only sought freedom, love, and a new life untethered by motherhood. Meenakshi flatly denied planning or instigating the crime. He confessed his feelings, but claimed he never imagined she would kill her children. He blamed her as the sole actor. However, calls, messages, and digital evidence told a different story. Police had recordings of him saying, "I'll handle everything. Just have the courage." That phrase became a key piece of evidence implicating him as an accomplice. The arrest of Abirami and Meenakshi shocked the entire neighborhood. People could not believe that the quiet, gentle woman they thought they knew was in fact a murderer. They began recalling strange things. The times she was absent from home for hours, the secretive glances when she talked on the phone, and her half-joking remarks about wanting to live a new life. The case was transferred to the district's Criminal Investigation Unit. After strengthening the case file, retrieving all communication records, gathering witness testimonies, and completing forensic examinations, the police officially concluded this was a case of premeditated murder, with an accomplice motivated by an extramarital affair and the desire to escape the responsibility of motherhood. Abirami and Meenakshi were placed in the Kanchipuram district jail to await trial. In the cell, Abirami remained silent, speaking to no one. Meenakshi tried to contact a lawyer in hopes of reducing his sentence, but time was no longer on their side. Justice was drawing near. The first trial took place in December 2018 at the Kanchipuram District Court. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, residents, and even child protection organizations were present. No one wanted to miss the trial of a case that had shocked public opinion, where a mother stood accused of killing her own 2 children in order to continue an illicit affair. Abirami was led into the courtroom in a white prison uniform, head bowed, eyes averted. Meenakshi followed behind, his face pale. The two never looked at each other once during the entire hearing. The prosecution began with an indictment nearly 20 pages long, listing all physical evidence, testimonies, autopsy results, and the complete history of communication between the two defendants. They asserted that Abirami was the mastermind, who planned and carried out the murder with intent. Meenakshi was the indirect accomplice, who incited and abetted the planning process. Abirami's defense lawyer tried to draw the court's attention to psychological factors. They argued that she suffered from mood disorders, postpartum depression, and long-term emotional exhaustion. However, the psychiatric assessment ordered by the court showed that Abirami was fully lucid, Clearly aware of her actions at the time of the crime, Meenakshi repeatedly denied any involvement. He claimed he only loved Abhirami but had no knowledge of her killing the children. Yet the text messages recovered from both of their phones strongly contradicted him. There were conversations discussing how not to be tied down, living as two free people, and cleaning up the past to start anew. A witness from a pharmacy confirmed that Abhirami had come to buy sedatives, using a false name. Neighbors testified that they had heard shouting inside the house days before the crime, and one recalled hearing her say, "I want to disappear from this house, from the role of being a mother." These casual remarks became incriminating pieces of evidence. Throughout the trial, Ramesh, the husband, the father, sat quietly in a corner. Each time his children's names were mentioned, his eyes reddened. He said very little, uttering only one sentence when asked about his feelings. "I lost everything. There is nothing left to say." After nearly 7 years of hearings, adjournments, and further evidence gathering, in July 2025, the court finally announced the verdict. The entire courtroom fell silent as the judge stood, his voice stern as he read the judgment. Abhirami and Meenakshi Sundaram were sentenced to life imprisonment, with no parole and no reduction of sentence. The judge made it clear in the ruling, "This is one of the most brutal cases ever tried by this court. No words can justify a mother killing her own children for personal desires. This is not only a crime against the law, but also a crime against the very instinct of motherhood, against humanity itself." The courtroom was hushed. Abhirami did not cry. She simply sat still, eyes fixed on the floor, as if she had finally exhausted every emotion she had left. The small house in Kundrathur now stands abandoned. The iron gate rusts, the walls are covered in moss, and the sound of children's laughter that once filled the yard is now just a memory. Passers-by avoid staring too long. Some say that whenever it rains, they hear the voices of children calling for their mother in the wind. Ramesh, once a man with an ordinary family like anyone else, now lives alone in a rented room a few districts away. He no longer works. He hardly speaks to anyone. His life ended on that fateful night. He once dreamed of taking his children to school, giving them a future, but all of that was buried under an unimaginable crime. The Abhirami case is not only the tragedy of a family, it is a warning to a society gradually losing its fundamental values. When people are consumed by desire, selfishness, and the urge to escape responsibility, what they lose is not only morality, but also their very souls. A mother kills her children. A lover becomes an accomplice. 2 innocent children are gone forever. And a father bears a lifetime of pain without words. Behind every verdict lies a haunting question. What if she had stopped? What if someone had noticed earlier? What if? Forever only a what if. The case has ended, but its echo remains, not only in legal records but in the hearts of all who heard it, who witnessed it. This is not just a story of crime, but a judgment against indifference, betrayal, and the decay of human compassion. Once again, we remind ourselves, motherhood is not just a title, it is a sacred duty. No one has the right to trade it for selfish freedom.